When we think about universal design for learning, we think about the materials, which is what I've shown you. But in fact, we need to be careful about the standards and objectives that we use. We can always make standards in a way that, in fact, lots of students can't reach them. So part of the Universal Design for Learning guidelines talk about how do you make standards that have enough ways to get there that everybody can succeed. We don't talk about dumbing down the standards. We like high standards, and I hope you all like standards. What we don't want is lower standards for our students with disabilities. What we want is more routes to success. Is there a bunch of ways to get to that standard? If there's only one way to get to that standard, then by God, we're going to disable our students when our standards are what's disabled. Okay? Curricular materials and tools, the same thing. We can make materials which are not disabled, like I've been showing you. Teaching methods. How do teachers teach? How do they team teach so they work together? And lastly, and most importantly, with MCAS, etc., and by the way, Massachusetts is ahead here, how do we make our assessments so they are universally designed? What does that mean? It means that they're accurate. Most assessments, traditional printed assessments, are not accurate because they confound students' access to the test with their knowledge that the test is meant to measure. The classic example, an article just out yesterday, in fact, about students taking math tests. And students who, for example, are struggling readers or are dyslexics have lowered scores on their math tests because the test is really confounding and testing their reading instead of their math. Now you can say, well, what would that mean? Obviously, we can do the same thing for the math test that I just did here. We can have the math test read itself aloud and give the kids the right kind of support. Not about the math. We want to challenge the kid to do the math. We want to make the math hard. But we can't double up and say, but you know what? You're going to have to be a reader of X in order for us to even know how your math is. Because what happens is the scores were 50% lower for students with dyslexia on the math test than if they read the items aloud. Okay? So we're not getting an accurate measure of kids' math scores. All right. 2 minutes and I'll be finished. What's promising about moving in these directions? First, publishers are starting to do this. I showed you a Scholastic product. Pearson is the same. I think all of the publishers will begin to do this. And you know why? Because you're going to ask for it. You're going to say, don't send me disabled curricula anymore. Send me curricula that all of our students can use. There's accessible media producers I've listed here that are also working on how do we make books. You can get books from Recording for the Blind Dyslexic, from Bookshare and so on, electronic books where we can get a lot more support built in them than the printed books. So there's promising developments in the commercial industry. A big thing that I'm hoping you know about, but most people don't know about, in the IDEA regulations that Rich talked about and others, is a fundamentally changing law for students with disability. And it's called the National Instructional Materials Accessibility Standard. And it went into effect December 6th. And lots of you don't know about it because it's not controversial. Like teacher quality or something like that. But it is big. And here's what NIMUS does, and I'll tell you where to go to learn more about it. And Massachusetts is already on board. NIMUS requires publishers to provide, at the same time they publish a print version, an electronic version of their textbook. Big deal, yeah. Go ahead and clap. Yes, it's good. So lots of you know you've had to remake books, scan them, and do all that kind of stuff. Starting December 6th, every textbook published in the U.S. must provide a beautiful XML marked up digital version of that book to a national repository, and you can get it, okay? And it's only available to students who have print disabilities. Tracy Hall is going to talk later today, and if you want to know some of these controversies, go to her. But the only controversy is how big a group is included in print disabilities. Blind kids clearly count. Kids with CP like Matthew clearly count. Kids with organic-based learning disabilities clearly count. But what about all the others? Okay? So big issues on who counts for NIMAS. But the main thing is, and states must have a mechanism by which they distribute these electronic versions to the students who have print disabilities. So teachers don't have to waste their time remaking books and making another version and Xeroxing and making it bigger and all that crap. Teachers should be teaching, not remaking broken materials. Okay? And lastly, what's promising is this meeting. That who's going to drive this change? You need to make sure your school knows about NIMAS. You need to make sure your school is asking, are you asking for universally designed materials? Because the publishers are exquisitely sensitive to requests. We want to buy this kind of stuff. So what you need to do is make sure you're on the curriculum adoption committees. When they purchase the history books, you need to say, I'm sure hoping that's a universally designed history curriculum so my kid can participate. And you know what will happen? The publisher will say, yes, of course we do that. We do that, absolutely. And I just want, this is what you can do, too much time to go into that, but I want to just say, if you want to still make your own books, you yourselves can go to the CAST website and absolutely free, because the Massachusetts Department of Education supported us in doing this, and we work with teachers with students who had cognitive disabilities over the last few years, and I really want to thank the Massachusetts Department of Education. We now have a free book builder. You can come to this website and make books that your students can use, and you can even build in supports, and it shows you how to do it. So those things I was showing you in Thinking Reader can be in your voice, in your students' voice. Students put their own text in, their own images, and make their own books. Completely free. Thank you to Massachusetts, and thank you to all of you. But if you come... If you come and make books, you'll be able to share them with your other teachers and with your other students and so on. So there'll be a library of books that are really accessible. And these are for much younger children mostly, but I'm going to make a book about brain development and do it in this fashion. So there's things you can do. Mainly advocate, say we want universally designed materials, and we're working on NCLB. We want to get it in NCLB that the materials that come should come so all of your students can use it. Thank you very much.